The only downside is that if we're not able to break successfully above this creek, which we tried to, but we failed, it means that the chances of us coming down and taking those liquidations below 89 is actually increasing. So I think scenario B sadly has the higher statistical chance of playing out, which means that Bitcoin would probably come below $89,000, grab that liquidity, and absolutely destroy all altcoins one more time.
What's up, cool kids? FD White. Welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to bring one of my favorite analysts in the space, one of my favorite guys, one of the most talented people when it comes to the charts, when it comes to technical analysis, over to my channel, Crypto Kid. Been a fan, you know, I've seen your growth. I've kind of seen you grow, you know, over the past few years, man. And I definitely wanted you to come on, give you your flowers, tell you what an amazing job you're doing. So I wanted to bring Crypto Kid on to get his perspective on the market, to get his analysis when it comes to the charts, and just see what he thinks is going to happen within the next, well, short to mid term, because we're all bullish long term, so we don't even have to talk about the long term. Short to mid term, I definitely want to get your analysis. So appreciate you for coming on. I know it's late there, but what's going on with Crypto Kid? What's going on in Crypto Kid's world right now?
Dude, I mean, like you said, I'm super bullish in the macro, but short term, I'm kind of having a debate between two different scenarios. So on the daily time frame, Bitcoin has been consolidating in what looks like an ascending triangle pattern. Now, in bullish uptrends, what I've noticed with these patterns is that they tend to be continuation patterns. So especially if they form on large macro timeframes and take place for a long duration of time, and you can see that we've been consolidating in this boring range pretty much ever since the start of October or November. So that's already 104 days worth of consolidation, and it's half the consolidation that we experienced between March and November last year, which I don't know about you, but was the most brutal and boring time of my life. So this consolidation has been nasty, the one that we're in currently. And I'm waiting for the breakout, just like everybody else. But when the breakout does happen, it's going to be pretty significant. But obviously, everybody wants to know the $1 million question. Are we going to break out or are we going to break to the downside? Well, on that question, on that topic, I think there's two scenarios. One of them is the ascending triangle. And in preparation for this triangle, I've set out the following position. So I'm longing the support with minimal entries. I'm going to increase the long position if we're able to break up above successfully from this downward sloping trend line on the lower time frames. But until we see that confirmation, I'm still, I'm long a little bit, just in case that this is support and Bitcoin continues to pump to resistance. But this is scenario A, which would be the most ideal one, where we bounce back up to resistance, consolidate there for another 1 or 2 weeks, and then we continue pumping to 120, 130, $140,000. That's scenario A. Scenario B, on the other hand, is not as nice as scenario A. So what you can see on the chart currently is something called the Wyckoff reaccumulation pattern. It consists of different parts, right? You have the PSY, you have the BC, the ST, the AR, which should be right over there. And then you see the UT phase B, the creek, which we're currently in. And then technically you should see a spring that would take the price of the asset, in this case Bitcoin, below the prior swing low created at $89,000, collect liquidity, and then see a bounce to continue towards the upside. So again, this is also bullish, right? It's not bearish, which is good. The only downside is that if we're not able to break successfully above this creek, which we tried to, but we failed, it means that the chances of us coming down and taking those liquidations below 89 is actually increasing. So I think scenario B sadly has the higher statistical chance of playing out, which means that Bitcoin would probably come below $89,000, grab that liquidity, and absolutely destroy all altcoins one more time. And then we should see the inverse head and shoulders pattern, reverse, pump to around 100, find resistance, pump to a 102, find resistance, and then eventually consolidate at the prior highs, which is 106 to 109, and then break to new all-time highs. And this process would likely take 1 to 1.5 more months, which would be very, very depressing.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, those are the two scenarios I'm seeing currently for Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I got some tough questions for you, Crypto Kid. Number
Great.
one, where do you see an invalidation point when it's like, okay, raise the red flag, the bear market might be here, the bull market might be over? What are you seeing? Some sort of price movement? Are you seeing some sort of break of structure or break of a long-term macro support level, sentiment wise? Like, what are you looking at in order to gauge? Because me and Nick over from Market Cypher, we had this discussion yesterday, and we were talking about what constitutes a bear market for crypto. How do we know we're in a bear market? So I'm gonna throw that question to you, and you let us know, what do you think when it comes to that?
Great question. And my answer to you is the following chart. So, in every single Bitcoin halving cycle, Bitcoin tends to play what is called a parabola. Now, a parabola is just x to the exponent of 2. So, that's in math, that's a parabola. But the thing is, technical analysis is also math. So, when you apply a parabola pattern to any other asset, Bitcoin can be anything. You get something like the following. You have 4 different bases, and then you have one final push before breaking below the parabola and entering into a bear market. Now, I love this specific pattern for Bitcoin specifically because when you go into previous Bitcoin cycles, you can see that these parabolas are very prominent on Bitcoin's price action. 2017 was probably the best example, apart from the one that we have currently forming. It's just the one we have in this cycle, it is so textbook. These parabolas don't always tend to have the perfect base 1, base 2, base 3, base 4. They don't always tend to have these things. They can have 3 bases, they can have 5 bases, 6 bases. It's super unpredictable. But when we look at the exact textbook and look at the price action currently, and I'll get to these price increases, that's for an oscillator. We have base 1, which was in the bottom of the bear market in 2022. Then you have base 1. This was the consolidation from March all the way to October. And then you broke out. You got the ETFs. ETFs rallied Bitcoin to 71. We consolidated during the Trump news. And then boom, Trump pumped Bitcoin to 109. And we're seeing the final base before one last push towards the upside. Now, obviously, this scenario is only complacent if we can break above the ranges, so the range that we're forming between 109 to 89, if we're able to break to the upside, then I think that one final large wave is pretty much almost guaranteed. Because you've maybe we can talk about it in a future video, but there was this huge inverse head and shoulders, and there was the Bitcoin bull flag that was forming on macro timeframes, and all of those have targets above $120,000. So I'm seeing if we can break above that 109 range, minimum 120, and I'm expecting Bitcoin to top out at 180,000 to 200 in October of this year, just because Bitcoin tops out every approximately 80 weeks after the halving, which would take us to late October, early November. So I still think that Bitcoin will play by the cycles and do what it's done in every single cycle. I don't see a difference, so to say. But is it concerning that we've been consolidating so much and we have diminishing returns? So are we really going to pump much more? Yes, I think there are some right ways to be concerned, and we're seeing this MACD bearish crossover, which is not good. The last time we saw it was right over here, and that led to an increased consolidation. Not so much to a significant dip to the downside, but it was definitely a major consolidation of at least a few more months. So the worst case scenario that I'm seeing here, right, and just to point out the price ranges that you can see of 74%, 80% breakouts was from the RSI breakouts on the weekly time frame. I know it's super messy, and I apologize for the messy charts, but these breakouts on the RSI has led to an average of a 72% breakout for Bitcoin. So far, this trend line is still intact, and we're not breaking above it. And when you look at the MACD with a bearish crossover, I think it's super, super possible that Bitcoin consolidates for another month to 2 months. Because of that MACD bearish crossover. And then eventually, when we break above and we collect the liquidity below 89, and when we break above this RSI trend line, we have that continued breakout to the 180 levels. But I think worst case scenario is just to summarize everything that I've said. Worst case scenario, we play the Wyckoff. We go below 89. I don't know how much below we will go. It could be to 86, 84, 82, or even late 70s. I don't think we will drop more than late 70s. That's option A. And then after
Yeah.
you see that drop, you continue pumping. So those are the scenarios that I think is likely for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in alignment when it comes to that. I do see if we do seem to break that. I got like around 90, 91, 93. That's been pretty much the base. I feel like if we break down below there, we do have something coming down around 86. We haven't touched 86 in a while. And then we do have that CME gap. It may be coming in maybe around 75, 77K, somewhere around there. So those are kind of, I'm pretty much in alignment with what you're saying. And, the $1 million question is, when altcoin season? This is what everybody has been talking about, and the reason sentiment has been so low, Crypto Kid, this is because most people are in alts. Most people are not in Bitcoin, and if they do have Bitcoin, they're very, very is a very, very small amount of Bitcoin that's not really going to make life-changing money. A lot of people are in altcoins. A lot of people missed a lot of these altcoin trains, a lot of these altcoin bags that went up. We had the meme coin season going around, but a lot of these alts that a lot of people thought were going to happen or that was going to make life-changing gains haven't, come to fruition yet. So what is your take on altcoin season, meme coins? Do you think meme coins have ruined this cycle? Do you think altcoins are going to come back? A lot of people are saying utility is going to come back. What do you think? What is Crypto Kid thinking?
Well, I don't think memes have ruined the cycle. I think the reality is meme coins and NFTs and these subsidiaries of cryptocurrencies, they tend to rally due to two things. One of them is if you have consolidating price action on Bitcoin, degenerate investors, like 90% of crypto investors, they get bored. Okay, when Bitcoin consolidates, when Bitcoin does nothing, people tend to get bored. So I know this may sound super technical, but it's completely true. When the adrenaline and the dopamine runs out from Bitcoin, you tend to see mini altcoin seasons like we had in December when Bitcoin first started consolidating. And if that consolidation extends, then people find different things like meme coins to go ahead and find the same adrenaline from. That's number one. Number two is a more depressing story. So the second reason why meme coins have been very prominent in altcoin season, the proper altcoin season has been delayed, is firstly due to the interest rates. So when you look at the interest rates currently, you're still at 4.25 to 4.5%, which is tremendously high. When you go back to 2021 at the top of the bull market, you can see that during that altcoin season, interest rates were at record low numbers, which allows institutions and individuals to borrow money at a cheaper price, therefore stimulating the economy by investing and purchasing different risk-on assets. And number two, when rates are low, it is less profitable to keep your money in the bank to get a 4% yield. Therefore, you decide to put your money into riskier assets to get a potential higher yield. But when the bank is giving you a guaranteed 5%, obviously it doesn't make sense to buy into the S&P or to buy into altcoins. But now you're saying, okay, then why is the S&P going to new all-time highs? Well, it's completely artificial. Because when you look at inflation numbers, when you look at PMI numbers, the average Joe is suffering. The average Joe cannot afford his groceries. So the current pump, the current bull market that we're seeing with Bitcoin and the S&P 500, in my opinion, is completely artificial. It's not being caused by retail investors. It's fully by institutions and corporations. However, altcoin season is not, altcoins are not able to be manipulated that easily by institutions, simply because we don't have ETFs and simply because they're more volatile and more risky, and institutions and corporations don't really like them so much. So the real altcoin season begins when the average Joe buys the altcoin. The reason why 2021 was super successful was because, well, the amount of savings per capita in the United States was at an all-time high. And the average credit card debt the average Joe had was also at an all-time low. So people had money in their pocket. You just came out of COVID, you got the stimulus checks. So the economy for the retail, for the average person, was doing very well. So they could afford to go and buy into these altcoins. Whereas now, credit card debt is at an all-time high, and the savings per capita is at an all-time low. It's completely the inverse. So forget about altcoins. People don't have money to buy groceries. And now you're saying, okay, then how are meme coins pumping? Well, it's the same as gambling. When people have little money in their pocket, they search for ways to turn this little money into massive sums of money. That's the same thing when in casinos, and that's the same thing why the casino market doesn't really get impacted by bull or bear markets. In fact, in bear markets, there's more gamblers who want to turn their small money into large money, and that's the same with meme coins. It's literally the exact same mentality. So now we're seeing meme coins die away, thankfully to, well, not thankfully, but it was necessary, from scams like Libra and Kani launching tokens. I think people are educated on the fact that the retail, it is almost impossible for you to make stupid amounts of money from meme coins. The stories you see, they're from the founders or from people linked with the projects. And with that narrative kind of dying away, and hopefully the Fed cutting rates soon and the money printer going up, I think in the next 5 to 6 months, we should see a strong altcoin season when the Bitcoin dominance obviously closes below the 50% range too. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been looking at my notes or what's going on, but you have spot on. You have it spot on, man, because I've said the same thing, especially when it comes to the gambling culture, the casino culture, especially over here in America. I'm not sure how it is everywhere else. Here nowadays, everybody's gambling, sports betting, casinos. We have lottery, like they call it like the Mega Millions and Powerball. These things are going to like billions of dollars each time. So the gamble culture, the casino culture is at an all-time high, in my opinion. And I think meme coins are just another subsector under that specific category. So there's definitely, everything you're saying, I definitely second what you're saying. And then to segue off of what you're saying about retail, do you think retail is coming back this cycle? Because this has been, like you said, an institutional led cycle, an institutional led rally, as we saw with when Bitcoin they had to have not the halving, but when Bitcoin got the ETF, it was a little stagnant at first. Then we started to shoot up once these entities started to buy these ETFs. MicroStrategy, once they started to buy a lot, the price started to pump a lot. Like also in the S&P and also in the stock market as a whole, we saw the same thing, or we see the same thing. And I gauge it as my auntie, my uncle, my barber. Nobody's asking me about crypto right now. They may ask me about meme coins, but they're not really like 2020 and 2021. I had to put my phone on mute for like 6 months of the bull run because it was just like everybody kept asking me, and I'm like, I'm not giving you any advice because I've been telling you when these prices were super low. Now you want to call and do this. I'm not getting that. So what I'm gauging this on now is retail is not here. Even when we look at Google Trends, it's not as high as it was at these other peaks in the past. So do you think retail, with everybody being stretched for cash, do you think this is something that they will come back to this cycle, or is this something that we have to wait a little bit longer, maybe another cycle ahead?
I personally think that I don't think there's going to be any change. I mean, every cycle we see altcoin season, but the thing is, altcoins have been around since popularly 2017. So if you think about it, it's only been like this is the third cycle of altcoins. So it's not, you don't have too much history to give you a guaranteed repetition. But I personally like to believe also that altcoin season is going to happen. Like clearly there's interest for meme coins. Clearly there's interest for crypto. I think it's going to happen. We just need to see the interest rates go down. We need to see quantitative easing. And after we see those things, I think it's going to happen regardless.
Yeah, me too. I definitely think so. And if people have money for meme coins, then they have money for utility coins as well. So I just think of it in a logical manner that way as well. And before we get out of here, we do have to touch base on hacks and scams and things going on. I know you guys are very much intertwined within Bybit and things that's going along. Shout out to Ben, I think it's Ben Zhu, who handled this situation very well. He was very upfront with it, didn't hide anything, and Bybit is trying to recover slowly, but I think they're going to recover slowly but surely once that trust comes back. Scams, hacks can happen to anybody, and this just shows doesn't matter if you're a small retail investor or a large scale entity like Bybit, anything can happen. So, do you have anything to say about that? How do you feel about crypto as a whole right now when it comes to security, with arguably one of the biggest hacks happen, in dollar terms with Bybit? How do you feel about the security, and do you think this is a problem going forward for mass adoption?
Well, firstly, I completely agree with everything you said about Bybit. They're a fantastic team. Ben is an incredible leader. I mean, I've hung out so many times with him. He's a great guy, great leader. I think the way they've handled this situation, which was, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest hack in financial history, is remarkable. They solved it over the weekend, thanks to also the support of other crypto exchanges. Really, the industry came in hand to hand and really tried to fix this problem, and they did it so quickly, and it shows a lot of resilience. And I don't understand how people are showing FUD and comparing them to FTX, which makes no sense at all,
Wow.
because FTX was playing with customer funds that they didn't even exist. So it's really not comparable. And Bybit are incredibly legitimate people and very hardworking people, so they handled it very well. That's number one. And number two, you know, cryptocurrency, we're still a new industry. It's only been 16 years since Bitcoin has been around, and it's only been like 7 to 8 years since the biggest exchanges in the space has been around. So obviously, we're still early. It's incredibly early. And the hackers that are allegedly behind this hack are probably the biggest hacking organization in the world. So it's very unfortunate. I think it's heightened safety and heightened alertness in the space to increase protection, which is a good thing. And Bybits have already taken loans to cover the Ethereum transactions that were leaving withdrawals from the exchange, and they have enough money to cover everything. So I wouldn't worry
Yeah.
about that at all. But
Yeah. And
yeah, I mean, it's. Mhm.
no, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that crypto as a whole is tougher to hack significantly more than your traditional bank, right? Even with quantum computing, it will take you trillions of qubits of computing power with quantum computing to be able to hack into an actual wallet. And this
Yeah.
wasn't a hack into actual wallet, it was a hack into a user interface. So they didn't hack into the wallet itself. Whereas the banking system with quantum computing, that I would be much more scared about, because that is much more easily hackable than cryptocurrency. So the best thing for the retail, for you watching, to do is to just make sure to, even if it's the most trustworthy exchange in the world, keep your crypto on a hardware wallet. If it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. If the exchange goes bust after years of litigation and lawsuits, there's a chance that you may get your funds back, but it will only be the dollar value that you've invested when the exchange went bust. But if everything is up 5x, then you've missed out on that 5x your crypto investments made. So please keep your crypto in a hardware wallet. Otherwise, you don't really own it.
Yeah, very true, very true. So, Crypto Kid, man, I appreciate you for coming on. If you want more insights, more data, more analysis, more in-depth reviews of these things like we talked about today and more, make sure you guys go and check out Crypto Kid's channel. Links will be in the
By the
description
way,
below.
I'd love to have you on my channel this week, and I'd love to see you on the Moon Show as well. So would be fantastic if we can make those two happen. And if you want to see FD White, then also check the Moon Show out, because we'll do something regularly with him.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I love coming on. Every time I come on, it's amazing. It's a party. It's a party, man. I love the moon. So appreciate you for coming on, like I said, and we'll talk soon. And appreciate everything you do in the space. We'll talk to you in a minute.
Thank you, man. Take care.